President Theodore Roosevelt used to go traveling with a friend of his, a naturalist and explorer named William Beebe. The two of them had a ritual that they shared every time they went camping. Before they went to bed, they would look up at the night sky and identify a particular patch of stars near the constellation of Pegasus. Once they found it, they would recite these words together in unison. "That is the spiral galaxy of Andromeda. It is as large as our Milky Way. It is one of 100 million galaxies. It consists of 100 billion suns, each larger than our own." And when they'd finished reciting that script, Roosevelt would turn to his friend and he'd say, "Beebe, I think we're small enough. Now let's go to sleep." I love that story. I love the window it opens into the character of an American president, arguably the most powerful person on earth, who made certain before going to sleep that he had refocused his perspective in order to see himself as being smaller. And I love its reminder that we are all defined by a balance of grandeur and insignificance. This season draws us into self-examination, urging us to recognize the things we have done and the things we have failed to do over the past year. We become reacquainted with ourselves in the brighter light of a new year, and we recommit to the work of spiritual growth in the months ahead. And as President Roosevelt knew, sometimes our ability to grow depends strongly on our ability to make ourselves smaller. The ability to move from pride to humility, to know when it's time to make less of ourselves, is a precious skill and an increasingly rare one, too. I remember when we used to think that it was the height of vanity to put a custom license plate on your car. Today, you haven't achieved real vanity until you have your own personal space program. Yes, there are those who have committed their lives and their fortunes to eradicating poverty and disease, but there are countless more who invest only in monuments to their own ego. Now, I'm not talking strictly about how we use our material wealth and resources, but more broadly about the impact we have on the world around us and how we adjust that impact by the way we attend to our innermost selves. Tonight, I want to introduce you to a teacher you may not have met before, a teacher who focused his spiritual leadership on the work of recalibrating the ego. Rabbi Simcha Bunim was born in 1765 in southern Poland. He received his Jewish education in the yeshivas of Hungary, and after he grew up and got married, he made his living as a pharmacist. It wasn't until later in his life that he heard the call to serve as a rabbi, and he went to lead the Hasidic community in a small town called Przizhcha. He was an unusual Hasidic rabbi. He spoke several languages, he wore modern Western clothing, and his biographers tell us that he was generally more interested in playing cards and chess than studying or praying. Reb Simcha's teaching inspired some and scandalized others because he taught that the primary goal of Jewish life was not to become a scholar or a saint, but to become a mensch. He was concerned about the dying art of modesty in an age of egotism. He taught his disciples to avoid narcissism at all costs, to redraw the boundaries of their egos by emphasizing 3 principles as the first line of defense against self-obsession. First, seek the truth. This was the paramount goal of Jewish life for Reb Simcha. He encouraged his students toward rigorous questioning and penetrating reflection. His was a critical approach that felt no fear of doubt or disbelief. He never worried that the search for truth would lead his followers away from Jewish belief or Jewish life. The only cardinal rule in Reb Simcha's community was that no one was ever permitted to lie, even or especially to oneself. Second, be authentic. Reb Simcha insisted that his disciples remain unfailingly true to the essence of who God created them to be. He taught them to imagine that they were searching for buried treasure inside themselves, and that they shouldn't be surprised when that search led them to discover their own weaknesses and flaws. In fact, they should be grateful for those discoveries as well. Finally, know yourself. In order to stand with integrity before the divine presence, one must begin with self-discovery in order to arrive at some clarity of who one really was. When a person knows who he is, Reb Simcha taught, no one and nothing can frighten him. But the decision to make ourselves smaller can feel frightening. It is disruptive and countercultural to suggest that more isn't always better. It may put us out of step with the world around us. It's hard to remember that just because we can have something doesn't mean that we should have it. It's hard to be as ambitious about how we give as we are about how we take. It is hard, but not impossible. A commitment to humility in this new year will not require that we ignore our talents and gifts, only that we resolve to use them for more than self-aggrandizement. Because narcissism is bad for the soul. And incidentally, it may be bad for the body as well. Some years ago, in a clinical study of the causes of heart disease, the researchers were surprised to find that in addition to the standard factors of stress and diet, patients who used the words I and me and mine most frequently in conversation turned out to be more likely to develop heart disease than those who did not. Taming our egotism requires acknowledging the things that are larger than ourselves, recognizing that we are bound to something ancient and enduring. All of us carry inside ourselves the two poles of Jewish historical memory, the tyranny of slavery on one side and the wild, undisciplined openness of the desert on the other. But a commitment to truth and authenticity and self-awareness helps us navigate between those two poles toward the center, to what Maimonides called the Shvil HaZahav, the golden pathway of a more moderate self. And it is from here that Reb Simcha's best-known teaching emerges. He taught that every day you should carry 2 slips of paper, one in each of your pockets. On one piece of paper, you should write the Hebrew phrase, Anochi afar ve'efer, which means, I am but dust and ashes. And on the other, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, for my sake, the world was created. And then, depending on what you need on any given day, you reach into one pocket or the other for your daily guidance. When we're feeling small and low, when we're overwhelmed by our failings and our limitations, we reach into the left pocket and contemplate the majesty of the entire universe, having been created just for us. When we're feeling high and mighty, overly proud of our own talents and accomplishments, we reach into the right pocket and remember that we are flawed and finite mortals whose time on earth is fragile and temporary. Some days we need the wisdom from one pocket, and some days we need the other. But the combination of those two slips of paper can help strengthen us as we work to avoid both self-centeredness and self-doubt. Tonight begins the first day of the Hebrew month of Tishrei. But this month is called by a different name in the Bible. There in the book of 1 Kings, this month is called Yerach HaEtanim, which means the month of powerful forces. Now, there are different theories among scholars about what that name is meant to signify. Maybe powerful forces refers to the imminent presence of God, or maybe to the generations of our families and our people who came before us. But maybe it refers to the powerful forces that we carry inside. And maybe when we beat our chests during our confessions, we are waking our hearts from their slumber, stirring the powerful forces that are dormant deep within, rediscovering that we are strong enough to make the changes we dream of this year. In 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary became the first man to summit Mount Everest. But he failed in his first attempt up the mountain a year earlier. After that unsuccessful expedition, he was invited to return to London to address the Academy of Sciences. And while delivering those remarks, he turned to face the side wall of the auditorium on which a large mural of Everest was painted. He paused and he spoke directly to the painting. "Next time I will succeed, for I am still growing and you are not." He knew, just like President Roosevelt knew, and just like Rabbi Simcha Bunim of Precision knew, that the dimensions of our hearts are vitally important, but they are never permanent. We live in unending cycles of growth and diminution. And so to aid us as we make our way through those cycles, I am happy to tell you that I have a gift for you tonight, as a reminder of Reb Simcha's teaching and as a souvenir of this 75th anniversary year of this congregation. These gold coins, engraved with those two phrases that Hasidic rabbi taught 200 years ago. You'll pick one up, all of you, on your way out, from the ushers at the exits, at the doors to the sanctuary. Keep it with you during this year, in your pocket or in your wallet or in the cup holder of your car. Because this year, all of us will have days when we'll feel self-absorbed, when we're concerned with nothing but ourselves. We'll all have days when our concern for other people or other obligations lead us to overlook our own needs. Sometimes we all take up more space than we should, and sometimes we surrender the space we deserve. When you find, over the year ahead, that you have gotten out of balance, your coin will remind you to recenter and move forward. Before he died, Rabbi Simcha Bunim of Precision went completely blind. And despite his training as a pharmacist, he refused medical treatment or any medication that might have saved his sight. When his students asked him why, he replied, "I have already seen everything I need to see." What will we see inside ourselves this year? The world is waiting for us to open our eyes. It needs those of us who stay quiet too often to speak up. It needs those of us who take too much to give back. The world needs us to notice when we have grown too large and when we are satisfied with staying too small. And when we do, our decision to change course can have cosmic significance. One last story about Reb Simcha of Persishcha. He used to tell this story. When I was young, I thought that I could change the world. And as I got older, I saw that I couldn't change the world, but at least I could change my city. As time went on, I saw that even that was beyond my grasp, so I said, at least I'll change my neighborhood. When I saw that that too wasn't working, I said, well, at least I'll try to change my family. When I saw that that too had failed, I said, I suppose I'll just have to try to change myself. But once I changed myself, then I saw that my family had become different. My neighborhood had become different. My city was different. And in a sense, the entire world was different. Our resolve this year about which pocket to reach into, about how to grow smaller when we should be smaller and larger when the world needs us to take up more space. Those choices will change the world. And so let this be a year when we search for buried treasure inside our souls. Let our search bring us to the knowledge that all of us, dust and ashes, fragile and flawed, are heirs to this magnificent new world that was created just for us. Shana Tova.